The Corellian Engineering Corporation is perhaps the quintessential shipbuilder in Star Wars. They made some of the most recognizable ships in Star Wars, including the Millennium Falcon, and the way their ships are designed is an exact match for the way Star Wars is meant to look. Of course, there are reasons for that, in-universe and out, so let's get into it. The Corellian Engineering Corporation was founded on the core world planet Corellia, the most prominent planet in the Corellian system. This system contains 5 inhabited planets and 3 native sentient species, all arrayed in perfect, harmonious orbits. In fact, the system is so perfect, it is widely believed that it was manufactured by the Celestials, an ancient galactic power using the mysterious center point station, which also resides in system. So many inhabited planets in one place meant the Corellian system was full of opportunities for space travel even before the development of hyperspace technology, incentivizing the locals to get very good at building ships. Corellia itself was also quite the harmonious planet. Its people valued industrial might and technological progress, but they also wanted to preserve the natural beauty of their planet. So they created buildings that were integrated into the landscape, and their shipyards were primarily constructed in orbit, allowing the planet below to stay unpolluted. This method successfully preserved Corellia's natural beauty for many thousands of years, but it also made living space on the planet quite scarce. That, combined with Corellia's high birth rate as a result of its predominantly rural lifestyle, meant that many Corellians were forced to look outside of their home for a chance at prosperity. Luckily, the CEC was there to help. The Corellian Engineering Corporation was formed in the very early days of galactic history, though the exact date and method have since been lost to the mists of time. It is likely that one or more large Corellian shipbuilders merged to create this enduring behemoth, but that is simply speculation. What is known is that the company specialized in civilian ship design, creating innumerable exploration and trade vessels and allowing Corellia to expand its influence to a massive degree. The CEC managed to stay at the cutting edge of starship manufacturing throughout the history of the Republic, constructing some of the most rugged and effective ships and ship parts in the galaxy, and its influence is a major contributing factor as to why not 1, but 2 of the galaxy's largest hyperspace lanes are named after Corellia. Still, through all of that time, CEC stayed as principally a civilian manufacturer. They did build weapons, armor, shielding, and other systems with combat applications, but that was never the focus of the company. And the systems they built were mainly designed to protect their ships from pirates and raiders, rather than fulfill any military niches. This civilian nature did keep them out of the sights of most galactic powers for some time, but it did not save them forever. During the rise of the Empire, the CEC was nationalized alongside every other starship manufacturer the Empire could get its hands on, and CEC began producing modules for the Imperial Navy. During this time, many industrial jobs were also moved planetside, bringing pollution to the surface of Corellia and destroying the careful balance that had been maintained there for thousands of years. The CEC did not take their nationalization lying down, however, and their designers and engineers constantly pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable for a civilian vessel by Imperial standards. They also continued their practices of not recording any customer information during transactions and selling to absolutely anyone, meaning CEC ships were regularly seen in criminal organizations as well as in the hands of the Rebel Alliance. After the fall of the Empire, CEC continued making not technically warships for the New Republic until it was eventually taken over by the First Order, following the destruction of the New Republic at Hosnian Prime. CEC ships are known for being exceedingly rugged, durable, and highly customizable. CEC crafts are highly modular as well, allowing for many components to be swapped out seamlessly with aftermarket parts and allowing the owners of CEC ships to customize their vessels for whatever role they want. Smugglers like Han Solo and Lando Calrissian made particularly heavy use of this design feature, modifying the CEC YT-1300 light freighter known as the Millennium Falcon until it became the fastest and possibly most notorious ship in the galaxy. Helping their efforts along, all CEC ships are designed to be extremely tough, especially by civilian standards. CEC vessels are designed with multiple redundant systems and fallbacks, allowing them to take a substantial beating before being rendered inoperable. Most customers of the corporation use that feature to avoid doing maintenance for extended periods of time, but for those that find themselves in combat on the regular, it's a lifesaver. Now let's cover some of the more well-known ships designed by the Corellian Engineering Corporation. The YT-1300 is perhaps the most well-known of all CEC vessels. With a length of nearly 35 meters, a price tag of approximately 100,000 credits, and a maximum cargo capacity of up to 100 metric tons, this ship was maybe the best bang for your buck a light freighter captain could buy. The value wasn't really in the baseline statistics though, as the chief selling point of the YT-1300 was its modularity. CEC is known for making highly modular ships, but the YT-1300 takes this to the extreme. The YT-1300 is made up of two main sections, the main body saucer section and the external cockpit, which can be mounted to the left or right of the forward prongs, or between them, whichever the purchaser prefers. The internal compartments within the saucer section are also fully customizable, allowing the purchaser to select which kinds of compartments, mainly passenger quarters or cargo holds, they want more of, and to choose their layout, with the exception of the engine room. The engines are also designed in such a way that they can be easily removed and replaced with whatever engines the captain desires. Add on to this that the YT series ships were absolutely chock full of little gaps and spaces to hide things in, between the modules and the hull, and it becomes obvious why this ship is the first choice for smugglers across the galaxy. The most famous example of the YT-1300 is also one of the most famous ships in the Star Wars galaxy, the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon has a long and storied history, stretching back decades before the Clone Wars, but its most famous actions were in the service of Captain Han Solo, when it gained the paradoxical title of being the fastest ship to make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. As the first vessel ever seen in Star Wars, the CR-90 Corellian Corvette holds a special place in many of our hearts, particularly mine as it is my favorite ship in the Star Wars galaxy. Also known as the Rebel Blockade Runner, the CR-90 is 150 meters long, costs approximately 3 million credits, and boasts the highest top speed of any production Corvette-class ship. Originally designed as a diplomatic transport, the CR-90 was designed to be supremely fast, moderately well-armed, with the classic CEC modularity allowing it to be supremely well-armed if the end user wishes, wink wink, and highly durable. These factors made this ship highly desirable for the young Rebel Alliance, and their heavy use of the ship defined CEC's reputation in the post-Imperial era. The Rebels mainly used the CR-90 as a skirmishing corvette, arming it with turbo lasers so that it could trade fire with much larger Imperial vessels while using its small size and agility to dodge the majority of return fire. This role did lead to relatively heavy losses among Rebel CR-90s, but the resource-starved Rebels did not have many other options. Perhaps the most famous CR-90 is the Tantive 4, the personal transport of Princess Leia Organa. In the days before the Battle of Yavin, this particular ship was captured by the Star Destroyer Devastator shortly after escaping the Battle of Scarif, but it displayed an exceptional amount of resilience while doing so. Unfortunately, the Tantive 4 had taken damage to its power grid while escaping the Battle of Scarif, leaving the shield's weapons and most importantly engines at reduced efficiency, and allowing the Devastator to catch it. However, even with pre-existing damage, the Tantive took a number of shots from the Star Destroyer before it was disabled, far more than should be expected from a craft that small and with a barely functioning power generator. After all, the Devastator is the same ship that crippled the MC-75 Profundity in less than a minute, and cut a Nebulon B frigate in half while doing so. The fact that Tantive 4 took more than one shot to bring down even in its crippled state is a marvel, and a testament to the engineering prowess of the Corellian Engineering Corporation. Introduced 12 years before the Clone Wars, the Gozanti-class transport quickly became one of the most prolific ships in the galaxy. With a length of 64 meters, a cargo capacity of 75 metric tons without its external racks, and costing only 200,000 credits, the Gozanti was the go-to freighter for any medium to small size shipping company with more than a few vessels. The extreme ease and cheapness of maintenance for the freighter, along with its respectable speed and range, makes the Gozanti one of the most efficient company freighters imaginable, and by fitting a few of CEC's optional weapons to the ship, wink wink, it is more than capable of seeing off all but the most determined of pirates. In fact, the Gozanti's cheap running costs, relatively good armor and weaponry, and ability to carry very heavy cargo in its external hardpoints made the Gozanti a highly desirable ship for many large galactic organizations, including a few large navies. Both the Confederacy of Independent Systems and the Galactic Empire utilized the Gozanti in their respective navies, giving the ship a rather unique honor. The CIS primarily used the ship for its original armed transport role, but the Empire added another role to the Gozanti's duties. By replacing the ship's external cargo hardpoints with docking clamps, the Empire was able to add a complement of 4 TIE fighters to the Gozanti and turned it into a system patrol ship. The Gozanti performed this role well and became one of the most common sights for spacers traveling at the edges of Imperial space. And that means that CEC was running 2 ships in the early rebellion, one on the Rebel side and one on the Empire's. Like I said, they sell to anybody. With much cleaner lines and more comforts than the usual CEC vessel, and coming in at 155,000 credits, the VCX-100 occupied a niche as a high-end light freighter for the discerning captain. It was still just as rugged and reliable as any ship built by CEC, but it was much more polished than would typically be expected from their light freighters. That doesn't mean this ship was soft, though. On the contrary, with 2 dual laser turrets and an auxiliary starfighter coming in on the VCX-100, this ship was maybe the most heavily armed, unmodified light freighter ever produced. The most famous example of a VCX-100 in the Star Wars galaxy is undoubtedly the Ghost, personal ship to the Rebel hero Hera Syndulla and home to the Spectres, a rather elite cell of Rebel operatives famous for their infiltration missions. The Ghost featured enhanced weaponry, shielding, and stealth systems, including a highly illegal transponder scrambler that it used to great effect. The ship would serve the Rebellion practically from its inception, fighting in the battles of Attilan as well as Scarif, and even as part of the Citizens' Fleet at Exegol more than 30 years after its construction. And as a side note, Hera might be one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, so given that it's her ship, I love this thing. Speaking of the Battle of Scarif, now would be a good time to mention perhaps the most important ship of that battle. Although the Sphyrna-class corvette, also known as the Hammerhead corvette, was mainly manufactured by Rendeli Stardrive, the ship was designed by the Corellian Engineering Corporation, and thus deserves a mention in this video. Coming in at 117 meters long and costing 1 million credits, the Hammerhead was originally designed as an armed transport with a cargo capacity of approximately 23,000 metric tons. Its design was heavily inspired by the old Hammerhead-class cruisers, originally created by Rendeli Stardrives back in the days of the Old Republic. And while the Sphyrna was much smaller than its predecessor and designed solely for civilian use, its ancient military heritage did shine through in a couple of places. For one, the Hammerhead corvette was more well-armed than most transports of a similar size. With 2 heavy laser cannons on either side of the bridge, a dorsal twin laser turret, 4 light laser turrets, and optional externally mounted missile racks, the Hammerhead was dramatically overarmed for simple transport duties. Perfect for an escort corvette, though. The ship's engines were similarly overpowered. Although not capable of making the Sphyrna particularly fast, especially compared to the CR-90s, the engines provided far more pushing power than was actually necessary for a ship of its size. Imagine it like a big diesel engine. It might not go very fast, but the torques it can produce make it amazing for towing heavy loads. Add onto this the Hammerhead's insane durability, and you end up with a ship perfect for ramming. The most famous Sphyrna-class corvette is likely the Lightmaker, which, after taking heavy damage skirmishing in the early stages of the Battle of Scarif, evacuated most of its crew and executed a daring ramming maneuver against the Star Destroyer Persecutor. The ram was successful, very successful, and resulted in the destruction of the Persecutor, Intimidator, and the Scarif Shield Gate, resulting in a rebel victory. The ship was lost in the maneuver, however its captain, Kato Okoye, his crew, and the ship itself were honored by the rebellion for their sacrifice. While the Corellian Engineering Corporation is indeed an ancient company with many ancient designs, the oldest ship we're going to be including on our list is from the days just after the Ruusan Reformation, approximately 1,000 years before the events of the Skywalker Saga. The Counselor-class cruiser is a 115-meter-long unarmed diplomatic transport that had served the Republic for a millennium by the time of the Clone Wars. The ships did see a number of updates and modifications over that time, but by and large, the design was the same for the entire period. The Counselor-class cruisers were entirely unarmed in their standard configuration, relying on speed, armor, and the peaceful nature of the Republic during its Golden Age for protection. Of course, at the start of the Clone Wars, that had to change, and most Consular-class ships were given the C-70 retrofit, adding a number of weapons including 4 turbolasers and concussion missile launchers to give the ships a fighting chance in a war zone. Interestingly, once weapons were added and updates were made, these ancient transports became very effective skirmishers for the Republic Navy, often being used for cavalry raids behind CIS lines or in flanking maneuvers. The surprisingly good showing the armed versions of the Consular renamed Charger after the weapons were attached showed just how good CEC's original design was, and perhaps even illustrates the prowess of CEC's engineering teams better than any of their more modern vessels. For a real-life comparison, imagine if somebody stuck a Sea Whiz on the USS Constitution, sailed it out of the harbor, and then took down an entire fleet with it. A major exception to the rule, CEC only builds civilian ships, is the Free Virgilia-class bunker buster. Unlike the Gazanti-class patrol ships that CEC was strong-armed into building under Imperial rule, the Free Virgilia-class bunker buster was designed from the ground up as a warship. The Free Virgilia class is technically classified as a corvette, but coming in at over 316 meters long, which is longer than a Nebulon B frigate, it really pushes the boundary of what a corvette can be. Add to this the extremely heavy weapons carried by the ship, including 3 heavy bunker-busting plasma bombs with yields equivalent to Cold War nuclear weapons, 2 dual heavy turbo-laser turrets, 8 heavy ordnance pods, and 4 point defense lasers, as well as a squadron of heavy bombers or A-wings held on external docking pylons, and the ship really starts to look like more of a light cruiser, or at least a frigate. The disconnect between the ship's size, capability, and supposed classification, as well as its hyper-specialist role, has led to most to refer to the ship with only its bunker buster classification, which is as unique as the ship itself. Not much information is available on the Free Virgilia's development, but given its high degree of specialization and the time at which it was made, the ship was very likely ordered by the New Republic from CEC very shortly after its founding. The heavy nature of the weapons would really only be useful against large, well-armored Imperial targets, and CEC's civilian-minded engineers would be unlikely to build such a specialized warship unless a major and pressing threat existed to necessitate it. Additionally, while bunker busters have only been seen serving with the Resistance and in the Citizens Fleet, it is unlikely that the Resistance's limited resources could have funded the high costs of developing such a ship, particularly since the rest of their ships and equipment are known to be New Republic cast-offs and leftover materials. Given this likely origin, it is unlikely that many Free Virgilia bunker busters exist, as the production line could not have been open for very long due to the rapid demilitarization the Republic went through after the defeat of the Imperial Remnant. Still, the Free Virgilia class is a very impressive ship, and proof that CEC can make very powerful warships if they decide to. The Corellian Engineering Corporation has created a great many of the most recognizable ships in the Star Wars galaxy, with a higher number of hero ships than any other company. Their aesthetic, with its balance of form and function and rugged designs, practically defines the aesthetic of Star Wars itself, and there is a reason for that. And if anyone ever wants to paint a picture of the CEO of the CEC, you should use this man for inspiration. Ralph Requarrie is responsible for most if not all of the appearances of early Star Wars vessels, including all of the early hero ships, and the distinctive appearance of Corellian design ships is created by following the design elements he invented. CEC ships are where this influence is the most obvious. though his legacy is spread throughout the whole of the Star Wars galaxy. The Corellian Engineering Corporation is one of the most consequential shipbuilders in the Star Wars galaxy, and we couldn't hope to cover their whole story in this video, but I hope that we've covered enough to illustrate just how important they really are. This has been the first video in a series we plan on doing, covering the various starship manufacturers of the Star Wars galaxy, so if there are any companies you want to make sure that we cover, please comment down below. Also, we did not cover every important ship built by the CEC, nor were we exhaustive in our coverage of the ships we did choose to include, so if we missed your favorite ship, or if you want us to go into more detail about any of the ones we did cover, go ahead and let us know that in the comment section too. Heck, say anything, because the more comments you leave and the more likes this video gets, the better we're going to do with the algorithm and the more we're going to be able to make of this content. But for now, I have been Austin, and this has been College of Lore. See you next time.